Hey all, this video is for the ones who are super stressed right now, the ones who are anxious and are overthinking, and of course for anyone who is a human being in the middle of a pandemic. Fall under that category? Well then, join me in this video today because it's only going to take a few minutes and I know that by the end of it you'll feel a whole lot better. So I just wanted to get one fact across. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and the last thing that you need is for you to be hard on yourself. I know right now capitalistic society expects us all to be productive 24/7, hand in assignments on time, even though the world is literally falling apart around us. The effects of the pandemic and social isolation are unprecedented, and to go about pretending as if we are not affected by it at all is just absurd. Past the immediate physical sanitizing and hand washing, there is a huge impact on our mental and social well-being. So many people I know are burning out, are struggling, are grieving, and just utterly exhausted at this point. And if you are feeling that way, you are not alone and it's okay. But what happens is we burn out and then still continue to beat ourselves up for not achieving something worthwhile or not getting things done. There are a couple of things that helped me in general to cope with 2021 and the pandemic, and I just wanted to share it with y'all in hopes that it can help you cope better as well. One of the biggest lessons I learned this year is to recognize that I am an intrinsic individual as well. And I say this because a lot of us are unnecessarily harder on ourselves than we would be on other people. So if somebody else makes a mistake, it's very easy for us to say, hey, don't worry about it. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, right? But when we make the same mistake, we're like, you had one job. Now everybody's going to hate you and you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life and achieve nothing worthwhile in life. And raise your hand if you have been your worst critic at one point or the other. Cheers. The one thing that I should have realized earlier, but now only it's sunk in my head, is that I deserve minimum the same level of compassion that I show to other people. And looking at things in that way honestly just made life so much more easier and welcoming for me. And on a side note, I also realized that I definitely ought to take the advice that I give for other people. It's so much more easier now to gaslight yourself and to think that your experiences are invalid and unworthy. So the best thing that we can do is to recognize that we can still feel sad, angry, depressed, anxious, worried, overwhelmed, and just utterly exhausted, regardless of whether or not we have gone through the experiences that we typically associate with a pandemic. And at the same time, still be aware of the privileges that we may or may not have. And number two, take breaks. So another thing that I learned this year is that there are multiple different types of rests. Up until this point, I only considered physical rest and mental rest, but oh my god, the rest of it is so important as well. Try your best to make sure you get adequate amounts of all of these types of rest. I'm trying as well. Take your breaks before you hit the burnout stage. That is when you're running low on energy, and not after you've completely drained yourself out, because then it's really hard to get back up again. One thing that I personally love is a social media break. And the thing with social media is that in addition to staring at a screen for like extended periods of time, you are being constantly bombarded by pieces of somebody else's seemingly perfect life and, you know, exceedingly terrible news on the news that can just really drain you out. I just tell a couple of close people that I won't be online for a while and then just stay off social media for maybe a day or two. But you know, obviously I get it when you say you are busy. If that's the case, something that personally helped me was to follow wholesome, feel-good, positive pages, accounts, and people and channels like this one. But yeah, because media and whatever you consume really impacts how you feel and how you think. Connect with people during your breaks, especially people that you wouldn't really connect with on a daily basis, maybe your grandparents or a friend that you haven't quite kept in touch with, because I think it's the human interaction that is going to keep us going. But if you actually prefer to sleep on the bed and stare at the ceiling, go ahead and do that, because that is also. The third thing that I would like to talk about is finding healthy coping mechanisms. And first off, something that I want to say is, if you've resorted to self-harm as a way of coping with the stress and the anxiety that comes with the pandemic, then I'm extremely sorry that it had to come to this. But one thing that I can assure you is that there is a way to feel better, and there is definitely a safer way to feel better. So get professional help right now. It will be worth it. The description in this video has links that will be useful. So if you need it, or if you know anyone else who needs it, do check it out. I am not a professional whatsoever, but if there's one thing that I can promise, is that I can be a non-judgmental sounding board for anybody who wants to vent. So something that I wanted to bring to attention is the fact that there's a wide variety of online therapy that can suit anyone. So there's chat-based peer support groups like 7 Cups, and on the other side there's paid stuff with like professional therapists like Talkspace and BetterHelp. So basically, if you feel like you need the help, go ahead and get it. So you don't have to be chronically depressed to finally get to a therapist. Therapists can help you with work, relationships, and everything in between, and not just mental health. So don't let the stigma surrounding mental health stop you or someone else from getting the help and therapy that they need. Because honestly, can we at least normalize talking about mental health and going to therapy and taking medication in the middle of a medical crisis where people are forced to stay under prolonged social isolation for so long? I mean, this is the least we can do. So back to coping mechanisms, I think a lot of us consciously or unconsciously resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms to, deal with the stress and anxiety. I resort to doom scrolling, which is just, scrolling on TikTok or IG, knowing that it's a bad decision. But I still reach for the phone and just scroll until I'm utterly exhausted. So I'm positive that a lot of people can relate. Other, unhealthy coping behaviors include eating too little, or binge eating, or just trying to sleep it off and just sleeping for extended periods of time, or sleeping too little. Also, overspending and isolating and distancing yourself. I really do think that self-harm doesn't necessarily have to be only physical. You can be deliberately hurting yourself mentally. Recognize these patterns of thought and emotion and feeling, and that really helps you to pinpoint a particular behavior or feeling and be like, hey, this is unhealthy. And being able to label it that way really helps you to find countermeasures. Most important point being you being able to stop yourself from going into that downward spiral of unhealthy behavior. That is such a skill and requires so much of self-control and strength overall. So we all be working on it. There's plenty of healthier alternatives like exercising, engaging in a hobby, playing with your pet, listening to music, and these mechanisms really help you to also alleviate the stress, but also increase the quality of your life in general. Oh, also journaling. I love journaling, especially because it is a way for you to vent and examine your feelings and emotions on your own and just get it all down. Whatever works for you, that's the nice thing. It's just a lot of flexibility. So try that out if you haven't already. So number 4 is setting boundaries. It's something that I definitely struggle with because I don't want to say no to anybody or like hurt anybody or accidentally, be mean to someone. So I end up saying yes to a lot of things and taking on a whole lot more responsibility at the expense of my sanity. And I've been trying to say no to things and be more assertive and vocal. The nice thing is, most of the people have turned out to be so much more nicer and accepting than I thought they would be when I say, I'm extremely sorry, I can't take up that responsibility. Of course, I'm still obviously very struggling with this whole thing, but you can decide where, when, and how you want to invest your energy. Okay, so go forth and set boundaries. So finally, one last piece of thought, and that is one step at a time. You got this. Because especially during the pandemic, it's really easy for us to just look at the things that are happening and just be like, there is no light at the end of this tunnel. Things are going to be this terrible all the time. I don't remember the last time I felt happy. Am I going to be sad forever? If you're going through that right now, I get you. It can be so terribly scary to feel that you have no anchor or nothing to just hold on to. Do remember and do remind yourself and look back and think about the good stuff that are worth holding on to. Cats and animals, and parks, and old trees and old buildings and tea and friends and family who make you smile. And like the little moments in life that I think is very, very important to remind myself that these things do exist, because sometimes it can be so overwhelming and you can be like, there is only negativity in this world. Once you are, in a good position, do reach out and pass the beacon of positivity and light and hope and all things good to the people around you, because we really have to be there for each other, y'all, and we are going to get through this together. So once again, a reminder, there are useful links in the description below for anybody who needs it. And sending the person watching this right now lots and lots of love and good vibes and appreciation for making it this far. In general, not the video, but yes, also the video. Thank you for watching. Are you smiling? Are you smiling? Good. Because sending you love.